suppose we take the order date, so that gives you the starting point, okay, and then we're going to select time to ship. So from the order date, then you will plot how long does it take to get the order shipped out, and then product category. So now you select that. So that's your Gantt chart. Then you have everything is summed to the year now, so you have to, let's see. All right, so now if you take it down to the day level, then you see each band. Okay, let's bring in the order ID into detail, then we will see the order ID. So each order ID has the start date, order date, and time to ship. Okay. So that's what Gantt chart is. Gantt chart plots activities over time on the x-axis. So beginning activity and ending activity. So that's what this is. Okay. Now bullet chart, the next one is bullet chart. Bullet chart is very useful. We've already done bullet chart, I think, once. Bullet charts are useful for comparing, okay, like sales versus budget, or sales this year versus sales the previous year. So for comparison purposes. Okay. So you plot one value and then you layer over another variable on the plot, and that would be, it's a bar chart. Okay. That would be a bullet chart. So we're going to use, so now let's suppose that we have sales and we want to compare sales this year against sales the previous year. So that's what we want to do. The previous example we did sales this year against budget this year. Okay, so that's when we blended two files and we brought in the budget information from a different data connection and we plotted that out. So now we have sales data in this single data source, right? Sales data from 2012 to 2015, I think. Okay. Suppose if we assume that the current year is 2014, okay, and we want to compare the current year sales with the previous year sales, which is 2013. Okay. So that's what we want to do. And how can we do that? So we have transaction data here. So we have to separate out sales. Okay, we have to filter in. Now there are several ways of doing this, but I'm going to just show you one way. So we want to have only 2014 sales, and then we want to have only 2013 sales, and then plot these two values. Okay. So one way of doing that is to calculate. Create calculated field. So we call this current year sales, right? And in this calculated field, we are going to use the if function, and the if function works very much like in Excel. But in Excel, the then and else clauses are automatic. In Excel, you start with an if, and then you have a condition, and then you put a comma, and whatever that you have after the first comma is the value if the condition is true. And then you put another comma and put something else in that last place, and that would be the value if the if condition is not true, right? So that's how it is done in Excel. It is very similar here. So you have if, next is condition, right? And we have a function called year, so all right, and order date. So we're going to look at the year of the order date, the year portion of the order date, because order date is what? Month, date, and year. Okay. Now we want to peel off just that year or portion from the order date, and if that is equal to 2014, okay, so that is the condition. Okay. Then, okay, so now the first comma that we use in Excel, here we use then. The then is like the first comma in Excel if function, right? Then we say sales, right? And then we have else, so that is like the second comma in Excel, and then we will say null. Okay. Now we have to say end. That's like ending, the finishing off the if function with a right parenthesis, right? So this calculation is valid, okay, but there is a big problem, and that is, so even for a small if statement like this, typing it all in one line like that is very unhelpful in terms of readability. You want the code, whatever code that you write, okay, you want that code to be easily understandable when somebody else reads it, or you yourself read it after about a couple of months, you come back and see you can't make head or tail out of it, right? So the proper way of doing this is add some spaces, all right? So you put the then separately, okay, and you put the else separately, and then you put the like that. Okay. All right. So now we're going to need the same code for the previous year. This is the current year, so we have to have the same code for previous year. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this, Control C. So I have it on the clipboard now, right? So now I'm going to click OK, and the current sales is done. Then we will create a second calculated field for the previous year. Okay, so I'm going to click OK here. Okay, so now we have current year sales right there. So go back, and previous. Control V to paste the code from the clipboard and then change it to 2013. Yes?
Why is your then and else null kind of under the year? Mine's skipped that. No, okay.
I just indented it.
Okay.
But it should automatically indent. It's again for readability. You know, you indent, usually you will indent the then and the else
Okay.
to make it more.
Does end have to be capital?
No, but it is. Yeah, it is. You know, that's the normal practice. But you don't need not be capitalized. It's case insensitive.
It just says mine contains errors, so I'm trying to identify why that is.
Yeah. You have to figure it out.
Okay. Okay. Now I have that.
And then you have more in your third line.
Oh, okay, there it is. Thank you.
All right. So now we have the two calculated fields. All right. So we select those two measures. So for a bullet chart, you have to have two measures. So you're going to compare one against another. Right? So now you can go do bullet charts and you'll have only one bar because there is no dimension. So we're going to now select product category. That would make one bullet chart for each category, right? So here is bullet chart, so click that, and now we have so what bullet chart does is it puts the reference lines. We talked about reference lines last time. So this is a reference line for with the previous year sales. Oh, I misspelled. I should say so this should be previous year. V and C are just next to each other. Alright, so previous year, so this is your current year. So of course you need to change the chart title to match with what's going on here. Like you could say sales current versus sales current versus previous year. Okay, then you can say reference line previous year. And we can reduce the subtitle font size and format it further. Okay, so this is there are two things going on here as far as comparison is concerned. So here is the actual against the previous year average, right? So that's one thing. The second is you see the band here, all right? So that band is, okay, so let's go ahead and see what it is. So right click on the current year sales, and if you see edit reference lines, there are two reference lines here. So one is the average previous years, previous year sales. Okay, so that's that, right? And then there is 60%, 80% average previous year sales. Okay, so that is this distribution reference line as against just regular reference line. So this is distribution reference line where you can select different kinds of distribution that you want. So here the default is 60-80. You can change that to some other percentage. Okay, so this gives you, that's your 60%, that's your 80% of that, because it gives you context when you do the comparison. Okay, all right. So now let me show you how to do this directly without the show me. So here we did show me and it put everything for you together, right? So suppose you want to start from scratch and do this, right? So I'm going to erase this. All right, so let's bring in product category into rows and current year sales into columns. So that gives you the starting point. So the basic bar chart. So now we have to add two kinds of reference lines, right? So add reference line, right? And it doesn't have, it has only current year sales. It doesn't have previous year sales. So it's just putting current year sales average here. Why? Because in the visualization we have only current year sales. Okay. The previous year sales is not in the visualization. So you have to bring it into the visualization. So the best place to bring it in is to put it in detail. Okay, so put it in detail so it doesn't affect your current graph, but it is there in the visualization. So the previous year sales is right here. Now if you go and add a reference line, then you will see both current year and the previous year. So select the previous year, and we don't want the computation, so we'll say none. All right. So now we have the reference line for the entire pane, but we want one for each cell, so you have to do that. Okay. And we can then change the font and other things. So now we have that. Okay. Now we want to add one more reference line, but we want that to be a distribution reference line. So once again, go back and add reference line. Okay. And we want distribution reference line. Okay. And you need to first select previous year. Okay. Select the value that needs to be used. All right. You don't want any labels, and then you want 60%, 80%, or if you want a different sort of distribution, you can do that too. All right. So, but by default, the distribution will start from 60% and it will end at 80%, or whatever number that you choose. You can choose to be 40% to 90% or whatever it is. So by default, the fill will be from the first number to the second number. So instead, we want the fill to be below, okay, and that's your 60%. So fill above, so that's your 60 to 80%. Okay. You can change the color. One more contrast, something like that. Well, actually, fill above fills out the 80 to 100%, so let's not have that. So just fill below, it fills out 80% and below up to 60%, and then 60% all the way to 0%. Excuse me? Percent level?
Per cell.
Per cell, yeah. So right now, it's doing it for the entire pane. So you have to change it to per cell level. Exactly. Absolutely. So then you'll have the band for each part.